My little sister, 16F, is dangerously close to getting groomed. What do I do? I, 18F, have a younger sister, 16F, who I love dearly. We were always close growing up, but over the past few years, things have changed. When I graduated from our high school last year and moved to a city further away to study, I knew it would be an adjustment for both of us. Little did I know the biggest challenge would come from an unexpected source. About 3 years ago, my sister began to struggle with her mental health. It was a difficult time for our family as we tried to support her and find ways to help. That's when she started becoming good friends with one of her teachers, a 26-year-old man. At first, we thought it was a positive thing. Having a teacher she could trust and confide in seemed to be helping her cope with her struggles. Their friendship remained within the boundaries of what was allowed at school, and we were grateful for the support he provided. However, things took a turn when he added her on Instagram. They began communicating through the platform, and I immediately felt uneasy about it. What was a grown man doing texting my young sister outside of school? It didn't sit right with me. I expressed my concerns to my older sister and parents, but they brushed me off. They believed I was overreacting and that their friendship was harmless. I wanted to trust their judgment, but deep down I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. As time went on, I kept a close eye on their interactions, hoping that my worries were unfounded. But this week my worst fears were confirmed in a way I never could have imagined. The truth about their relationship came to light, and it shattered our family's sense of trust and safety. I never thought I would find myself in a situation like this, navigating the complex and disturbing reality of an inappropriate relationship between my sister and her teacher. But here I am, determined to protect her and find a way through this nightmare. The road ahead is uncertain, and I know it won't be easy. But I refuse to let my sister become a victim of someone who should have been a trusted figure in her life. I'll do whatever it takes to keep her safe and help her heal from this betrayal. As I sit here trying to process the events of the past few days, I can't help but feel a mix of anger, fear, and heartbreak. How could someone we trusted so much take advantage of my sister's vulnerability? How did we not see the signs sooner? These are the questions that haunt me as I embark on this journey to protect my family and seek justice for my sister. I know there will be challenges and obstacles along the way, but I'm ready to face them head on. My love for my sister gives me the strength to keep going, no matter how difficult it gets. This is just the beginning of a long and painful process, but I'm determined to see it through. For my sister's sake, and for the sake of any other young person who may be in a similar situation, I won't rest until the truth is exposed and the appropriate consequences are faced. As I reflect on how this all began, I can't help but think back to the early days of my sister's friendship with her teacher. It started innocently enough, with casual conversations after class and the occasional extra help with assignments. My sister had always been a bright student, but she struggled to connect with her peers. So when this teacher took an interest in her and offered a listening ear, she latched onto that support. At first I was happy for her. She seemed more confident and engaged in her studies. The teacher's influence appeared to be positive, and I was grateful that she had found someone who could understand and guide her through the challenges she faced. But then things started to shift. I noticed that their conversations were no longer limited to the classroom. My sister would come home from school, head straight to her room, and spend hours on her phone. When I asked her about it, she mentioned that the teacher had added her on Instagram and that they were chatting there. I felt a knot form in my stomach. Something about the idea of a grown man, a teacher no less, communicating with my teenage sister on social media didn't sit right with me. I tried to express my concerns to my family, but they dismissed me, saying I was overreacting. "He's just being supportive," my older sister said. "You should be grateful that she has someone she can talk to." My parents echoed those sentiments, assuring me that the teacher was a professional and that there was nothing to worry about. They trusted him, and they believed that his intentions were pure. But I couldn't shake the unease that crept into my heart. Every time I saw my sister's face light up with a notification from him, I felt a pang of worry. I watched as their conversations grew longer and more frequent, wondering if I was the only one who saw the potential danger lurking beneath the surface. I tried to talk to my sister about it, to caution her about the risks of getting too close to a teacher, but she brushed me off, insisting that I was just jealous of their friendship. She couldn't see what I saw, the blurred lines, the inappropriate intimacy, the power imbalance that made their relationship so concerning. As the weeks turned into months, I watched helplessly as their bond deepened. My sister began to spend more and more time with the teacher outside of school, meeting up for coffee or going on walks in the park. She talked about him constantly, gushing about how much he understood her and how special their connection was. I felt like I was losing her, watching her slip away into a world that I couldn't protect her from. I tried to voice my concerns again, but each time I was met with resistance and dismissal. My family believed in the teacher's good intentions, and they couldn't see the red flags that were so glaringly obvious to me. Looking back, I wish I had been more forceful, more persistent in my warnings. I wish I had trusted my instincts and fought harder to make them see the truth. But I was young and unsure, and I didn't want to cause more tension in an already fragile situation. Little did I know, my worst fears were about to be realized in a way that would shatter our family's trust and change our lives forever. The day started like any other. My sister left the house, telling our parents that she was going to spend the evening with a friend. It wasn't unusual for her to go out, and we trusted her to be responsible. However, as the hours ticked by and the sun began to set, a sense of unease settled over the house. When my twin sister came to me, her face etched with worry, I knew something was wrong. She revealed that our younger sister had lied about her whereabouts. She wasn't with her friend at all. Instead, she had gone out drinking with the teacher and her friend, supposedly to help him through a recent breakup. The news hit me like a ton of bricks. I felt sick to my stomach, my mind reeling with the implications of what I had just heard. How could she be so reckless? How could he be so irresponsible? The thought of a grown man, a teacher, taking my underage sister out drinking was enough to make my blood boil. As we waited for her to come home, my family and I tried to piece together the situation. We learned that the teacher had recently broken up with his girlfriend, a 21-year-old woman he had started dating when she was just 15 and he was 20. The realization that this wasn't his first inappropriate relationship with a student only added to our horror and disgust. When my sister finally walked through the door, the tension in the room was palpable. My mother was beside herself, frantically texting my sister's friend's mother, trying to understand how this could have happened. My sister, on the other hand, seemed oblivious to the gravity of the situation. She shrugged off our concerns, insisting that they were just trying to be there for the teacher during a difficult time. But as we pressed further, the true extent of the teacher's inappropriate behavior began to unravel. My sister revealed that this wasn't the first time he had crossed boundaries with her. She told us about instances where he had suggested she sleep over at his place after parties, and how he would make comments that made her feel uncomfortable. I felt my heart shatter into a million pieces. How could I have let this happen? How could I have failed to protect my little sister from this predator? The guilt and anger consumed me, and I couldn't help but feel like I had let her down. As we sat there trying to process the weight of what we had just learned, I realized that this wasn't just a case of poor judgment. This was a pattern of behavior, a systematic grooming of a vulnerable young girl by someone in a position of power and trust. We knew we had to take action, to report the teacher's behavior, and ensure that he faced consequences for his actions. But as we began to research our options, we were met with a sickening realization. Apparently, if a teacher starts a sexual relationship with a student over the age of 16, it is perfectly legal. The very laws that were meant to protect our children had failed us. I felt helpless, trapped in a nightmare that I couldn't wake up from. How could we keep my sister safe when the system itself seemed to be working against us? How could we trust anyone to look out for her best interests when even those in positions of authority had proven themselves to be predators? As we grappled with the harsh reality of our situation, I knew that this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey. But I also knew that I would stop at nothing to protect my sister and ensure that justice was served, no matter the cost. The revelation of my sister's secret outing with the teacher sent shockwaves through our family. As the truth came to light, the reactions ranged from disbelief to outrage to utter devastation. My mother broke down in tears, her body shaking with the weight of the betrayal. My father's face hardened, a mix of anger and helplessness etched into his features. We gathered in the living room, trying to make sense of the situation. My sister sat on the couch, her eyes downcast and her shoulders slumped. I could see the confusion and shame written all over her face, and my heart ached for her. As we pressed for more details, my sister began to open up about other inappropriate suggestions the teacher had made. She told us about the times he had offered to give her rides home from school, even though she lived just a few blocks away. She mentioned the gifts he would give her, small tokens of affection that seemed harmless at the time, but now took on a sinister meaning. But the most disturbing revelation came when she told us about the time he had suggested she sleep over at his place. It was after a school event, and he had offered to let her crash at his apartment instead of going home. The thought of my little sister spending the night with a grown man, her teacher no less, made my stomach churn. I watched as my parents' faces contorted with horror and disgust. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. How could they have been so blind? How could they have trusted this man with their daughter's well-being? As the conversation continued, it became clear that the teacher's behavior had been escalating over time. What started as innocent conversations and extra attention had slowly morphed into something much more sinister. He had been grooming my sister, manipulating her emotions and exploiting her vulnerabilities. I felt a rage building inside me, a white-hot anger that threatened to consume me. I wanted to confront the teacher, to make him pay for what he had done. But I also knew that we had to be careful, to handle the situation with the utmost care and sensitivity. We decided to send an email to the teacher, outlining our concerns and demanding an explanation for his behavior. We hoped that by putting our concerns in writing, we could create a paper trail and hold him accountable for his actions. But as we hit send on the email, a sense of dread settled over me. I knew that this was just the beginning of a long and painful journey. We would have to navigate the legal system, deal with the school administration, and most importantly, support my sister through the emotional fallout of this betrayal. I couldn't shake the feeling of guilt that gnawed at me. I should have seen the signs earlier, should have been more forceful in my warnings. But I also knew that I couldn't change the past. All I could do now was be there for my sister, to listen to her, to believe her, and to fight for her with every ounce of my being. As we sat there trying to process the magnitude of what had happened, I realized that this wasn't just about my sister anymore. This was about every young person who had ever been taken advantage of by someone in a position of power. This was about the systemic failures that allowed predators to operate with impunity, protected by the very laws that were meant to keep our children safe. I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but I also knew that we wouldn't rest until justice was served. We would fight for my sister, for her healing and her future, and we would fight for every other child who had ever been violated by someone they trusted. This was just the beginning, but we were ready for the battle ahead. As we delved deeper into the legal aspects of the situation, we were met with a harsh reality. We discovered that in our state, if a teacher engages in a sexual relationship with a student over the age of 16, it is not considered a crime. The very laws that were meant to protect our children had a glaring loophole that allowed predators to operate with impunity. The knowledge that the teacher's actions were technically legal only added to our frustration and despair. How could we ensure that he faced consequences for his behavior when the system itself seemed to be working against us? Despite this setback, we refused to let it deter us from taking action. We crafted an email to the teacher, carefully outlining our concerns and the inappropriate nature of his relationship with my sister. We demanded an explanation for his behavior and made it clear that we would not tolerate any further contact with her. As we hit send on the email, I felt a mix of emotions washing over me. On one hand, I was proud of my family for taking a stand, for refusing to stay silent in the face of such a blatant abuse of power. But on the other hand, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that settled in the pit of my stomach. I knew that confronting the teacher was just the beginning of a long and arduous journey. We would have to navigate the complex legal system, deal with the school administration, and most importantly, support my sister through the emotional fallout of this betrayal. The thought of my little sister having to relive the trauma of her experiences, to have her character and motivations questioned and scrutinized, broke my heart. She had already been through so much, and the idea of subjecting her to even more pain and scrutiny felt like a cruel and unjust punishment. But I also knew that we couldn't let the teacher's actions go unchallenged. We had to send a message that this kind of behavior was unacceptable, that there would be consequences for those who preyed on the vulnerable and the innocent. As the days turned into weeks, the emotional toll of the situation began to weigh heavily on all of us. My sister withdrew into herself, spending hours locked away in her room, refusing to talk to anyone. My parents were consumed with worry and guilt, constantly questioning themselves and their parenting choices. And I found myself caught in the middle, torn between my desire to protect my sister and my own sense of helplessness and rage. I wanted to be strong for her, to be the rock that she could lean on during this difficult time. But I also felt like I was drowning, suffocating under the weight of my own emotions. There were moments when I wanted to scream, to lash out at the world for its cruelty and injustice. How could someone who was supposed to be a trusted authority figure, someone who was meant to guide and nurture young minds, use his position to exploit and abuse? But I also knew that anger alone would not solve anything. We needed to channel our emotions into action, into fighting for the justice and accountability that my sister deserved. As we navigated the complex web of legal and emotional challenges, I clung to the hope that we would find a way through this nightmare. I knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but I also knew that we would not rest until my sister was safe and the teacher was held accountable for his actions. We would fight for her healing and her future, and we would fight for every other child who had ever been violated by someone they trusted. This was a battle that we could not afford to lose, and we were determined to see it through to the end. As the weight of the situation continued to bear down on us, I found myself grappling with a new challenge: how to address the issue without coming across as a strict or paranoid older sister. I knew that my concerns were valid, that the teacher's behavior was not only inappropriate, but potentially dangerous. However, I also recognized that my sister was at a delicate age, and I didn't want to risk alienating her or driving her further into the arms of her abuser. I reached out to trusted friends and family members, seeking their guidance and support. I poured my heart out, sharing my fears and my frustrations, hoping that someone would have the answers I so desperately needed. Through these conversations, I began to realize the importance of open and honest communication within our family. We needed to create a safe space where my sister felt heard and validated, where she could express her feelings without fear of judgment or retribution. I approached my parents, urging them to have a frank and compassionate discussion with my sister. We needed to let her know that we were there for her, that we believed her, and that we would support her no matter what. At the same time, we knew that we couldn't handle this situation alone. We reached out to the school authorities, reporting the teacher's behavior and demanding that they take action to protect their students. The school's response was initially disappointing, with administrators seeming more concerned about protecting their own reputation than ensuring the safety and well-being of their students. But we refused to back down, and we continued to push for accountability and change. As we navigated this complex and emotionally charged landscape, we began to explore the various resources and support systems available to us. We sought out counseling services for my sister, knowing that she would need help processing the trauma of her experiences. We also connected with advocacy organizations that specialized in supporting victims of abuse and holding perpetrators accountable. These groups provided invaluable guidance and resources, helping us to navigate the legal system and ensure that our voices were heard. Through these connections, we began to see a glimmer of hope on the horizon. We realized that we were not alone, that there were others who had faced similar struggles and emerged stronger and more resilient. We drew strength from their stories, from their courage and their determination, and we began to see a path forward, a way to heal and to fight for the justice that my sister and so many others deserved. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I felt like giving up, when the weight of the situation seemed too heavy to bear. But I knew that I couldn't let my sister down, that I had to be the rock that she could lean on during this difficult time. So I dug deep, finding reserves of strength and resilience that I never knew I had. I poured my heart and soul into supporting my sister, into fighting for her future and her well-being. And slowly but surely, we began to see progress. The school launched an investigation into the teacher's behavior, and he was placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. My sister began to open up more, sharing her feelings and her experiences with us. And while the road ahead was still long and uncertain, we knew that we were on the right path. We had each other, and we had the support of a community that believed in us and stood with us. And with that knowledge, we knew that we could face whatever challenges lay ahead, that we could emerge from this nightmare stronger and more united than ever before. As the investigation into the teacher's behavior progressed, we knew that we couldn't sit back and wait for others to take action. We had to confront him directly, to make it clear that his actions were unacceptable and that there would be consequences for his behavior. We approached the situation with a mix of trepidation and determination. We knew that confronting the teacher would be emotionally taxing, that it would require us to dig deep and find the strength to stand up for what was right. But we also knew that we had no choice. We had to send a clear message that this kind of behavior would not be tolerated, that there were boundaries that could not be crossed without repercussions. We arranged a meeting with the teacher, with school administrators present to ensure that the conversation remained professional and focused. As we sat across from him, I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my palms slick with sweat. But I also felt a sense of clarity and purpose. I knew that we were doing the right thing, that we were standing up for my sister and for every other student who had ever been victimized by someone in a position of power. We laid out the evidence of the teacher's inappropriate behavior, the text messages and social media interactions that had crossed the line from friendly to predatory. We made it clear that his actions were not only unethical, but potentially illegal, and that we would not hesitate to take further action if necessary. The teacher initially tried to defend himself, to downplay the severity of his actions and paint himself as the victim. But as we continued to press him, his facade began to crack, and he eventually admitted to his wrongdoing. We emphasized the need for clear boundaries and consequences, not just for the teacher but for anyone who would seek to exploit their position of authority. We made it clear that we expected the school to take a proactive role in addressing the situation and ensuring the safety of their students. The school administrators assured us that they would take appropriate action, that they would investigate the matter thoroughly and take steps to prevent similar incidents from occurring in the future. But we knew that we couldn't rely on the school alone to protect our children. We had to be vigilant, to stay involved and engaged, and to hold those in positions of power accountable for their actions. As we left the meeting, I felt a sense of relief wash over me. We had confronted the teacher, we had made our voices heard, and we had taken a stand for what was right. But I also knew that this was just the beginning. We had a long road ahead of us, a journey of healing and recovery that would test our strength and resilience in ways we had never been tested before. We would have to support my sister as she grappled with the trauma of her experiences, as she learned to trust again and to rebuild her sense of self. We would have to navigate the complex legal and emotional landscape of holding the teacher accountable for his actions. But we would do it together, as a family united in our love and our commitment to one another. We would draw strength from each other, from the bonds that had been forged in the crucible of this crisis. And we would emerge stronger, more resilient, and more determined than ever to fight for a world where no child would ever have to suffer the pain and betrayal that my sister had endured. It wouldn't be easy, but we were ready for the challenge. We had each other, and we had the support of a community that believed in us and stood with us. And with that knowledge, we knew that we could face whatever lay ahead, that we could build a brighter, safer future for ourselves and for generations to come. As the dust began to settle on the confrontation with the teacher, our focus shifted to my younger sister's well-being. The trauma of her experiences had taken a heavy toll on her mental health, and we knew that we needed to provide her with all the support and resources she needed to heal and recover. The impact of the situation on my sister was profound. She struggled with feelings of shame, guilt, and confusion, often questioning her own judgment and blaming herself for what had happened. She withdrew from her friends and family, spending hours locked away in her room, refusing to engage with the world around her. It broke my heart to see her suffering, to watch as the light in her eyes dimmed and the spark of her personality faded. I knew that we had to act quickly, to find ways to support her emotionally, and ensure that she had access to the professional help she needed. We began by having open and honest conversations with her, creating a safe space where she could express her feelings without fear of judgment or retribution. We listened to her, validated her experiences, and reassured her that none of this was her fault. We also sought out the help of a therapist who specialized in working with victims of abuse and trauma. We knew that my sister needed more than just our love and support, that she needed the guidance and expertise of a trained professional to help her navigate the complex emotions she was experiencing. The therapy sessions were difficult at first, with my sister often resisting the process and struggling to open up about her experiences. But slowly, with the help of her therapist and the unwavering support of our family, she began to make progress. She learned coping strategies to deal with her anxiety and depression, and she began to develop a greater sense of self-awareness and self-compassion. She started to recognize that the abuse she had suffered was not a reflection of her worth as a person, and that she deserved to be treated with respect and dignity. As we watched my sister's recovery unfold, we were reminded of the importance of open and honest communication within our family. We had to be willing to have difficult conversations, to confront uncomfortable truths, and to support one another through the challenges we faced. We made a commitment to prioritize our mental health as a family, to create a culture of openness and empathy where everyone felt heard and valued. We knew that this was the only way to build the resilience and strength we needed to weather the storms that lay ahead. Through this process, I began to see glimmers of the old my sister returning. Her smile came more easily, her laughter rang out more frequently, and the light in her eyes began to shine once more. She still had a long way to go, and there would be setbacks and challenges along the way. But we knew that she had the strength and the support she needed to keep moving forward, to keep fighting for her healing and her future. As we looked to the future, we knew that we had to continue to be vigilant, to stay engaged and involved in the fight against abuse and exploitation. We had to use our voices and our platform to raise awareness, to advocate for change, and to hold those in positions of power accountable for their actions. But we also knew that we had to focus on our own healing, on building a foundation of love, trust, and support that would carry us through whatever challenges lay ahead. We had each other, and we had the strength and resilience that had been forged in the fires of this crisis. And with that knowledge, we knew that we could face anything, that we could emerge from this nightmare stronger, wiser, and more committed to building a better world for ourselves and for generations to come. As time passed and the immediate crisis began to recede, our family turned our attention to the long and difficult process of healing and moving forward. We knew that the road ahead would be challenging, that there would be setbacks and obstacles along the way. But we also knew that we had the strength and the resilience to face whatever lay ahead, as long as we stuck together and supported one another. We made a conscious effort to focus on the positive, to celebrate the small victories and the moments of joy that still managed to shine through the darkness. We cherished the laughter and the love that we shared, knowing that these were the things that would sustain us through the difficult times. At the same time, we knew that we couldn't ignore the pain and the trauma that my sister had experienced. We had to create a safe and supportive environment where she could continue to process her emotions and work through the lingering effects of the abuse. We encouraged her to continue with her therapy, and we made sure that she had access to all the resources and support she needed to heal and thrive. We also worked to empower her, to help her build the confidence and the self-esteem that had been eroded by the teacher's predatory behavior. We encouraged her to pursue her passions and interests, to surround herself with positive influences and healthy relationships. We helped her to set boundaries and to assert herself, to stand up for herself and to demand the respect and dignity that she deserved. As we watched my sister grow and flourish, we were reminded of the incredible resilience and strength that lies within the human spirit. Despite all that she had endured, she refused to be defined by her trauma, refused to let it control her life or her future. Through this process, we also learned the importance of maintaining open lines of communication and trust within our family. We had to be willing to have difficult conversations, to confront uncomfortable truths, and to support one another through the challenges we faced. We made a commitment to prioritize our mental health as a family, to create a culture of openness and empathy where everyone felt heard and valued. We knew that this was the only way to build the resilience and strength we needed to weather the storms that lay ahead. As we looked to the future, we knew that there would be more challenges and obstacles to overcome. But we also knew that we had the tools and the support we needed to face them head on. We had each other, and we had the unwavering love and commitment that had carried us through the darkest of times. We had the knowledge and the wisdom that we had gained through our experiences, and the determination to use them to build a better world for ourselves and for others. We knew that we couldn't change the past, couldn't erase the pain and the trauma that my sister had endured. But we could choose how we responded to it, how we used it to shape our future and our lives. And so we moved forward one day at a time, one step at a time. We celebrated the small victories and the moments of joy, and we leaned on each other when the pain and the darkness threatened to overwhelm us. We knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but we also knew that we had the strength and the resilience to see it through. And with that knowledge, we embraced the future with hope and with determination, knowing that together, we could overcome anything. As I reflect on the journey that our family has been through, I am struck by the profound impact that this experience has had on all of our lives. What began as a shocking revelation of inappropriate behavior by a trusted teacher quickly spiraled into a complex and emotionally charged situation that tested our strength, our resilience, and our commitment to one another. Through it all, we learned countless lessons about ourselves, about the world around us, and about the incredible power of love, support, and unity in the face of adversity. Perhaps the most important lesson we learned was the importance of trusting our instincts and speaking up when something feels wrong. From the moment I first learned of the teacher's inappropriate behavior towards my sister, I knew in my gut that something was not right. And while it took time for others to come around to this realization, I am grateful that I listened to that inner voice and took action to protect my sister. This experience has also taught us the critical importance of open and honest communication within families and communities. It is only by having difficult conversations, confronting uncomfortable truths, and supporting one another through challenges that we can build the kind of resilience and strength that we need to weather life's storms. We have also learned the incredible power of empathy, compassion, and understanding in the face of trauma and pain. Through our own experiences and through the stories of others who have faced similar struggles, we have come to recognize the profound impact that abuse and exploitation can have on individuals and families. And we have been inspired by the incredible bravery and resilience of those who have survived these experiences and gone on to build lives of meaning and purpose. As we move forward from this experience, we do so with a renewed sense of purpose and a deep commitment to being a force for positive change in the world. We know that we cannot single-handedly eliminate the scourge of abuse and exploitation, but we can do our part to raise awareness, to support survivors, and to hold those in positions of power accountable for their actions. We encourage others to be vigilant and proactive in protecting vulnerable individuals from inappropriate relationships and abuse. We urge parents, teachers, and community members to trust their instincts, to speak up when something feels wrong, and to take action to ensure the safety and well-being of those in their care. We also call on those in positions of power and authority to use their influence for good, to prioritize the safety and well-being of those they serve, and to take swift and decisive action when abuse or exploitation is suspected or reported. Ultimately, our journey has been one of pain and struggle, but also one of incredible growth, resilience, and love. We have emerged from this experience stronger, wiser, and more committed to building a world where every individual is treated with the respect, dignity, and compassion they deserve. We know that the road ahead will not be easy, that there will be more challenges and obstacles to overcome. But we also know that we have the strength, the courage, and the love to face whatever lies ahead. And so we move forward one day at a time, one step at a time. We hold tight to the lessons we have learned and the bonds we have forged, and we face the future with hope, determination, and an unwavering commitment to building a better world for ourselves and for generations to come.